The management of hypertension after the age of 60 requires a fundamental shift in perspective because the vascular system at this stage of life is no longer as resilient or elastic as it was in younger years. When blood pressure remains persistently high despite conventional interventions, it is rarely a failure of the heart alone. Rather, it is a symptom of advanced arterial stiffness and a breakdown in the body's internal signaling pathways. In many cases, the standard approach of simply lowering the volume of blood through diuretics or blocking calcium channels is insufficient because it does not address the underlying secret formula of vascular health: the ratio of nitric oxide to oxidative stress. After 60, the endothelium, the thin microscopic lining of your blood vessels, often loses its ability to produce nitric oxide, the gas responsible for telling your arteries to relax and dilate. When nitric oxide production drops, the arteries remain in a state of chronic constriction, forcing the heart to pump against immense resistance. This creates a dangerous cycle where high pressure causes further damage to the endothelium, leading to even less nitric oxide and even higher pressure. To break this cycle and bring blood pressure under control, you must focus on restoring the bioavailability of this critical signaling molecule. This isn't just about taking a pill. It is about providing the specific precursors and antioxidants that prevent nitric oxide from being neutralized by free radicals. This biological formula is the hidden key to unlocking arterial flexibility and protecting the brain and heart from the catastrophic impact of a sudden vascular event. As we dive deeper into this biological formula, we must address the role of the kidneys and their interaction with intracellular minerals. Most people are told to stop eating salt, but the secret to blood pressure control after 60 isn't just the removal of sodium, it is the strategic increase of potassium and magnesium. The human body operates on a sodium-potassium pump that regulates the electrical charge of every cell. When potassium levels are low, the body cannot effectively excrete excess sodium, leading to fluid retention and increased pressure within the vessel walls. Magnesium acts as a natural calcium channel blocker. It tells the smooth muscles surrounding your arteries to let go and relax. Without enough magnesium, your arteries stay clamped down, making it impossible for your blood pressure to stay within a healthy range. This mineral balance is a critical part of the formula because it directly influences the autonomic nervous system. By shifting the body from a sympathetic fight-or-flight state into a parasympathetic rest and digest state through mineral optimization, you significantly lower the baseline tension in your cardiovascular system. This is why many seniors find that their blood pressure remains high even on medication. They are providing the chemical signal to lower pressure, but their cells lack the mineral tools to actually execute the command. The final and perhaps most shocking part of this formula involves the role of dietary nitrates and the oral microbiome. Modern science has discovered that the process of turning food into blood pressure-lowering nitric oxide actually begins in the mouth. When you consume nitrate-rich foods like beets, arugula, and spinach, specific bacteria on your tongue convert these nitrates into nitrites, which the body then transforms into nitric oxide. However, many people unknowingly sabotage this formula by using antibacterial mouthwashes that kill these beneficial bacteria, effectively breaking their body's natural blood pressure regulation system. By restoring the oral microbiome and flooding the system with these natural nitrate precursors, you can achieve a rapid and significant reduction in systolic blood pressure that often rivals the effects of pharmaceutical intervention. This formula represents a total systemic recalibration. It is the combination of endothelial support, mineral balance, and the preservation of natural biological pathways. When these elements are aligned, the body's innate ability to regulate its own pressure is restored. This is the secret to maintaining a healthy cardiovascular system well into your 80s and 90s, moving beyond the management of symptoms and toward the restoration of true vascular vitality. Beyond the fundamental mineral balance and the restoration of nitric oxide pathways, the structural integrity of your blood vessels must be addressed to truly conquer persistent hypertension after the age of 60. One of the most critical and often ignored factors is vascular calcification, a process where calcium, which belongs in your bones, instead migrates to the arterial walls, turning them from flexible, elastic tubes into rigid, pipe-like structures. This is a primary driver of systolic hypertension in the elderly, and it is largely governed by the presence of vitamin K2. Most individuals have been led to believe that taking high-dose calcium supplements or dairy is sufficient for bone health, but without adequate vitamin K2, this calcium has no traffic cop to direct it. K2 activates a specific protein called matrix GLA protein, or MGP, which acts as a powerful inhibitor of calcification in the vasculature. When you are deficient in K2, MGP remains inactive, and calcium begins to accumulate in the soft tissues of your arteries. This rigidification means that every time your heart beats, the pressure spikes because the arteries cannot expand to absorb the force. Reversing this requires ensuring your body has the necessary activation signals to pull calcium out of the arteries and deposit it back into the skeletal matrix. This is not a matter of simply lowering blood pressure. It is a matter of physically remodeling the arterial wall to restore its youthful compliance, which is a key component of the formula that many standard medical protocols completely overlook. Shutterstock. This structural health is inextricably linked to your metabolic status, specifically your body's sensitivity to insulin. After 60, insulin resistance becomes a silent architect of high blood pressure, often acting as the engine that keeps your numbers elevated even when you are adhering to a low-salt diet. High levels of circulating insulin cause the kidneys to reabsorb sodium and water, which increases blood volume and, by extension, blood pressure. Furthermore, chronic hyperinsulinemia promotes the proliferation of smooth muscle cells in the vessel walls, causing them to thicken and narrow the channel through which blood must flow. This is why managing blood sugar is not just a concern for diabetics, it is a cardiovascular necessity. When your cells are resistant to insulin, they are essentially starved of fuel, prompting the body to signal the release of more glucose, which keeps the system in a state of chronic inflammation. This inflammation damages the lining of the vessels, making them prone to plaque accumulation and further reducing their ability to dilate. To address this, you must treat your blood pressure as a metabolic condition. By reducing intake of refined carbohydrates and sugars that spike insulin, you relieve the pressure on your kidneys to retain sodium and allow the vessel walls to thin and regain their elasticity. This is a direct biological intervention that tackles the root cause of the pressure rather than just suppressing the symptom. We must also confront the impact of chronic hormonal dysregulation on the cardiovascular system, particularly the role of cortisol and the renin-angiotensin-aldosterone system, or RIAS. After 60, the body's ability to clear stress hormones is diminished, leading to prolonged elevation of cortisol, which keeps your nervous system in a permanent state of high alert. Cortisol is inherently hypertensive. It stimulates the adrenal glands to produce more epinephrine and norepinephrine, which constrict your blood vessels and accelerate your heart rate. If you are constantly in a state of low-grade anxiety or stress, your body is effectively being told to fight or flee, which makes it impossible for your blood pressure to settle, regardless of how many medications you take. This is exacerbated by the RAS, a hormonal system that regulates blood pressure and fluid balance. In many seniors, this system becomes overactive, causing the body to hold on to excess fluid and constrict vessels unnecessarily. Certain medications are designed to block this system, but they can have significant side effects like electrolyte imbalances and kidney strain. A more biological approach involves supporting the adrenal glands through the stabilization of blood sugar, adequate sleep hygiene, and the use of adaptogenic nutrients that help the body buffer the impact of cortisol. By calming the gas pedal of the sympathetic nervous system, you create the physiological space for your blood pressure to normalize. You are teaching your body to prioritize repair and relaxation over the survival-based response of constriction and high pressure. This shift from a state of emergency to a state of balance is the cornerstone of long-term cardiovascular resilience. When you align your nutritional intake with the metabolic and structural needs of your vessels, you move from fighting against your body's biology to actively supporting its natural rhythm of regulation, turning the tide against the pressure that threatens your heart and brain. The culmination of this secret formula for controlling blood pressure after 60 lies in the restoration of the body's natural circadian rhythms and the optimization of the lymphatic drainage system within the brain and heart. Many people are unaware that blood pressure follows a distinct 24-hour cycle, where it should naturally dip by 10 to 20% during the night to allow the cardiovascular system to recover. In many individuals over the age of 60, this nocturnal dipping vanishes, a condition known in clinical circles as being a non-dipper. This is not a benign occurrence. It is one of the strongest independent predictors of future stroke and heart failure. The failure to dip is often caused by a systemic disruption in melatonin production and a chronic state of nighttime sympathetic dominance, where the body is stuck in a state of high alert even when you are trying to sleep. Melatonin is not merely a sleep hormone. It acts as a powerful, potent antioxidant that protects the vascular endothelium from oxidative damage during the hours of repair. When you stabilize your sleep-wake cycle and reduce exposure to artificial blue light in the evening, you allow your body to enter the deep, restorative stages of sleep where the glymphatic system, the brain's specialized waste clearance mechanism, can function at full capacity. This clearance of metabolic toxins reduces neuroinflammation, which in turn lowers the physiological set point for blood pressure in the brain's vasomotor center. When this system is working, your blood pressure naturally resets to a lower baseline every single night, preventing the long-term cumulative damage of sustained high pressure. Another critical and often overlooked component of this formula is the impact of visceral fat and its secretion of inflammatory cytokines. After 60, fat tends to accumulate around the internal organs rather than just under the skin. This visceral fat is not a passive storage site. It acts like an independent endocrine organ, actively pumping out inflammatory signals like interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha. These chemicals directly attack the lining of your arteries, causing a state of chronic vascular friction that makes them stiff and unresponsive. This prevents the vessels from dilating even when your body signals them to do so, creating a feedback loop of elevated pressure. To counteract this, the formula requires a strategic focus on cellular metabolic health. It is not just about the number on the scale. It is about the chemical composition of your body and the inflammatory output of your tissues. By consuming polyphenols found in dark berries, green tea, and specific cruciferous vegetables, you activate the SIRT1 gene, often referred to as the longevity gene. This gene improves mitochondrial function and significantly reduces the inflammatory output of your fat cells. This is a biological intervention that changes your internal environment so that it is no longer working against your heart and blood vessels. When you lower the systemic inflammatory load, you remove the constant irritant that is forcing your arteries to remain constricted. We must also address the specific trace mineral requirements that govern the structural integrity of your arterial walls, specifically the balance between copper and zinc. While much public health focus is placed on sodium and potassium, the physical ability of your arteries to snap back after each heartbeat depends on the enzyme lysyl oxidase, which requires copper as a mandatory cofactor. Elastin, the protein that gives your arteries their flexibility, cannot be cross-linked and maintained without adequate copper levels. If you have an imbalance in these trace minerals, your arteries slowly lose their elasticity over time, leading to a permanent state of constriction, or conversely, a dangerous structural weakness that the body cannot regulate. This is why the secret formula is truly a holistic map of human biochemistry, rather than a simple checklist. It involves the alignment of your oral microbiome, the management of your insulin and cortisol levels, the protection of your arterial elasticity through vitamin K2, and the restoration of your body's natural rhythmic cycles. This approach requires a complete transition in how you view hypertension management. You must shift your focus from blocking symptoms with synthetic compounds to building health through these fundamental biological foundations. Pharmaceutical interventions are often necessary in acute, emergency situations, but they cannot replace the structural and chemical needs of the vessel walls themselves. When you align your nutritional intake,